Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam, and you're watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies. And today I want to tell you about the top 10 most mind-bending movies you can currently watch on Netflix. Number 10 on this list is The Lazarus Project. Now, do not confuse this with Lazarus, anything else. There's a couple of Lazarus movies, but believe it or not, this one actually stars Paul Walker in a very unusual role for him. And by no means is Paul Walker one of the greatest actors ever, but he does fairly well in this one. He kind of stands out. You're going to be surprised at how good of a job he does in a little bit more of a dramatic role. But this one revolves around an insane asylum, and it really is sort of a mystery movie, and it's very difficult to tell kind of what's going on at any given time. You could almost call this one like the poor man's Shutter Island. It's a much lower budget movie. It's similar, it doesn't go in the same direction as Shutter Island, but it is the same type of thing where someone's trying to sort of solve a mystery on the grounds of an asylum. So for that reason, I really enjoyed this one, so much so that it's actually been a really long time since I've seen it, but I still remember it and it still stands out to me, and that's why I've got it back here at number 10. Recently on the channel, I recommended a movie called The Stanford Prison Experiment. There's also a movie called The Experiment that is very loosely based on the real Stanford Prison Experiment. Now, this is a complete work of fiction. The concept is similar to the actual Stanford Prison Experiment, and this one stars Adrian Brody and Forrest Whitaker, and it's basically about, again, loosely based on a real experiment where some test subjects were divided into two groups, and they were designated as guards and prisoners, and they were locked into an environment, and then it's essentially a social experiment. This movie is much darker and grittier than the actual experiment, although the movie based on the real experiment is potentially darker because it is so real. This one's much more fictitious, but just knowing that it is loosely based on reality will kind of give you the chills when you watch it. At number 8, I've actually got one of the most mind-bending movies on this entire list, and the reason it's at number 8 is just because it's a much smaller movie, very, very low budget, which is not a knock against it, but because of that low budget, I think it kind of held this movie back from its full potential. There's a greater concept at play here that wasn't allowed to fully bloom because of, financial reasons. But that said, it's still a really cool concept about a man locked in a cell. He has no idea how he got there. There is a computer and a camera that will communicate with him and give him a little bit of information, but get used to hearing, I don't have that information available. You're going to hear a lot in the beginning of this movie, and he essentially has to figure his way out. Have you ever played the game Portal? It's somewhat similar to that with way less action. It's more about him figuring out this puzzle and also sort of struggling with these dreams and thoughts that he's having whenever he goes to sleep. So very, very interesting concept. I'd love to see it get like another chance maybe 10 years down the road. I honestly, not that I just pull for big budget movies, but the concept of this movie really with more money behind it could really, like I said, just blossom into something really fantastic. But if you're into the way I'm talking about it, you're going to at least enjoy the 90 minutes that you would spend with this one. ARQ, that's spelled ARQ, is actually one of the earlier Netflix original movies, and this one's about time travel. It's a very small movie. It takes place on essentially one set, like one house, but with that small budget and small concept, they really did a lot. I think it plays out really well, and like I said, it is about time travel, and it's essentially about this machine that's in this house or facility or whatever it is that actually causes time to jump back. So you're kind of dealing with a Groundhog Day situation where the main characters keep reliving the same thing over and over again, but they're essentially reliving this element where they're trying to get out of this situation that they're in. They're essentially held captive, and piece by piece they're able to sort of figure out what's going on and how to get out of it. I enjoyed watching this one a lot. I thought it was a really good effort for an early Netflix original movie. It does feel like a TV show production-wise, but still, the story delivered. I would have loved to see them do more with it. Had this been the beginning of a series, I imagine I would have watched and enjoyed the whole thing. At number 6, we've got a space horror movie called Pandorum. I have talked about it before, got good responses in the comments, so I know a lot of you liked it. If you have not seen it, I would akin this one the most to Event Horizon as another one you might have seen if you didn't see that one. Think Alien, but with more of a mind-bending factor in it. Now, the mind-bending factor really isn't going to come into play till late, but that said, the ride is really good. It's actually fairly slow in the beginning where you're not really sure what's going on, but because you're sort of with Ben Foster creeping around this extremely dark spaceship and you don't know what's going on, this movie's interesting from beginning to end, and the pace just gradually picks up faster and faster as you go through it. So I really enjoy this one a lot. It is silly at times, as a lot of space horror can be, but that's to be expected, and if you can get past that, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this one. If you like content like this, definitely click that subscribe button and be sure to click the little bell icon, because without it, you'll never know when I put a new video up, but I put one just like this one up at least 3 times a week. Now we're at number 5, and this is kind of the segment of the list where if I tell you too much, it's going to ruin the movie. So I got to be very loose here, but because this is a top 10 list, these movies get increasingly better and better. So my recommendation is to maybe start at the top at number 1 or as close to number 1 as ones you have not seen and start to work your way down. So at number 5, I've got Perfect Host, which is a really wild and dark. This is a dark one, and so is Pandorum, but it's basically about a guy at a dinner party who then stays after the party, and the host is not who he seems to be. Like I said, this one's very dark. You can tell by some of the footage here. And this one is going to play with you in multiple ways. It's going to kind of hem and haw back and forth, and you're never going to quite really know exactly what's going on, but that's what's so entertaining about this one. If you want a dark, sort of one set type of a movie, this one is a great way to go, and I know it's one a lot of people have missed. Very similar to Perfect Host is The Invitation. This one also revolves around a dinner party. It's about a guy who's visiting an ex-wife at a dinner party with her new husband and her new friends. So that's awkward enough, but then the weird thing is this one continues to get weirder and weirder. He'll see something, someone will say something, he starts to get very, very edgy, it starts to feel very, very culty, and this is another one where you're never really sure exactly where people stand, what's going on as you're watching it. This one to me is a very, very slow burn. My first time watching it, and yes, I said first time, I've watched this one at least 3 times. I like it that much. I wasn't sure about it. I was almost going to bail on it because I'm like, this isn't going anywhere. This one does go somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where. I'm not going to tell you any more than that. But trust me, just hang in there for the ride. Watch it. Come back to this video and let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. For another space sci-fi movie that is not really a horror movie, I want to recommend Moon, which is directed by Duncan Jones. It stars Sam Rockwell and only the voice of Kevin Spacey. But this is about a man who literally mans the space station on the moon, or a space station on the moon, since the would imply that there is a space station on the moon currently. But he's the only inhabitant of this space station, and it's his job to sort of keep it running, maintain it, and he's completely alone. So you get a little bit of a Castaway type of an element in this one. And then midway through the movie, he starts to discover things and starts to realize that things are not quite the way he thinks that they are. And then he basically begins to go down this rabbit hole, and you get to go with him. And just like The Invitation, this one goes somewhere you're not going to expect. But this one has a cult following. Duncan Jones has built a career off the back of this movie. I get a lot of comments anytime I recommend it. A lot of people really love and appreciate this one. So if you have not seen it yet, this one might be one of the best places to start on this list. If you want to support the show, you can do so a number of ways. I've got a Patreon. There's a link in the description. I've got a t-shirt shop with shirts like this and plenty others. There's a link in the description. Just liking, commenting, and sharing does plenty for me. So I really appreciate all the views, appreciate all the support. I'll keep plugging away as long as you keep watching.
Hey.
No, I'm calling to speak to
Where are you calling from?
I'm sorry. I think there's been a
Who is
misunderstanding.
this?
Okay, I'll call back later.
words, my top 2 picks are the weirdest, most mind-bending, mind-puzzling ones on this list. Number 2 is a little-known movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal called Enemy. Now, this is actually directed by Denis Villeneuve, who did Blade Runner 2049, did Arrival, did Sicario, did Prisoners, a lot of really beloved, high-profile movies, and in between those 4, right in the middle, he did this little movie called Enemy. So to forego spoiling anything, I'll essentially give you the information you're given in the trailer, more or less. Jake Gyllenhaal plays a guy who, one night while watching a movie, sees a character in the movie that looks identical to him. Looks it up, it's an actor. He then finds his another movie and then essentially like tracks this guy down, essentially finds his doppelganger. That's all I'm going to tell you, because from there, like if that sounds weird enough to have like 2 Jake Gyllenhaals that don't know of each other, things get very, very weird from there. That's sort of the kickoff point. This one gets very bizarre. It's one of those movies, odds are, unless you're just some sort of super genius, you're not really going to understand what it means or what it could mean the moment it ends. It's going to take some pondering. Some of you are going to hate me for recommending this one in the comments. Some of you are going to love me. That's the way it goes, but just fair warning, this is a weird one.
Come to me.
And then as if that isn't weird enough, my number 1 pick is even weirder. It's called Under the Skin. It stars Scarlett Johansson. This one, man, okay, so Scarlett Johansson essentially plays an alien who essentially abducts men and somehow, I'm not going to tell you how, consumes them. The very, very interesting thing about this movie and the way it was filmed is she's got brown hair. She doesn't quite look like herself. It's Scarlett Johansson, but with like different hair. She rode around in a moving van. There are plenty of scenes of this in the movie, but they hid cameras all over this moving van. She pulled up to random guys on the street I believe they're in England or Scotland, and solicits them, basically flirts with them, tries to get them to come into the car. These are real people. Now, a couple of them are actors at some point in the movie, and you may or may not be able to tell who, but some of this is very, very real. Now, she does have security in the van behind her that you can't see, but these are total strangers that essentially think a beautiful woman has just picked them up to take them home and have sex with them, which is essentially the premise of the movie, except instead of a woman, it's an alien that is going to drain the life out of them. So that is weird enough. And then this one just takes a real turn into this really like existential art film. And man, it has a bizarre, I don't want to say anything more about it. This is one that really requires multiple viewing if you're into this sort of a movie. It really is just an incredible like piece of sci-fi that's unlike anything else. It's dark, it's disturbing. It's my cup of tea. I enjoyed it a lot. I know a lot of people hated it. Can't wait to read the comments on this one, but that's it for the list. Let me know what you will be watching, but I will keep making content like this as long as you keep watching it. But thanks for watching this episode, and you will see me next time.